Hey everyone, Crust the Knee Bag Tano here. I've been working like crazy on a giant video that I'm really excited for, but since it's the end of the year, I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of my favorite albums that came out in 2024, so this can wait a bit. Some of these albums you're absolutely going to be familiar with, but I'm also going to touch on a lot of incredibly small, slept-on releases, so no matter who you are, no matter how much scene cred you have, I can guarantee you're going to walk away from this video with something new. So, let's begin. Okay, before we jump into it, I have to give an obligatory annoying disclaimer. If any of these bands, or if any members of these bands end up being horrible people, don't yell at me about it, yell at them. I didn't do it. And I know that that's common sense, but this is the internet, which is where common sense goes to die, so I felt like I should make that clear. I did not conduct any background checks, I'm not their employer. These are just MP3 files that I thought were pretty cool, nothing more, nothing less, so I'm gonna rattle them off as quickly as possible in no particular order. First up is Extortion's Threats. This album rips so goddamn hard. One thing that I love in extreme music is when speed is incorporated not just into the instrumentals, but into the vocals as well. And Extortion does this really well. At times it sounds like you're skipping through someone's Instagram story. Which I'm joking obviously, but for real, this album is top 10 of the whole year easily, and I'm so glad I got to see them perform it live as well. Dismal released their last album for the foreseeable future this year, which is unfortunate, but also a good send-off. King Yosef had these two single releases this year, and I truly think it is some of the most slept-on shit of the entire year. It's industrial, it's hardcore, it's beat down at times. It's doing something new and different and cool, and that's more than I can say for a lot of other acts out there. Despite not having a particularly large following, I do believe it is impossible to exit this music video without being a new fan. Frail Body's Artificial Bouquet is scrams at its warmest. One of the best aspects of the album is that the bass really comes through in the mix, which just works so well. It's also super refreshing to hear because I'm sick and tired of extreme music kind of neglecting the bass in their mix. If you're a heavy band and Two Door Cinema Club has beefier bass than you should be ashamed. But as beefy as the bass is on this project, it does not come at the sacrifice of emotion and rawness. There's a riff in the opening track Scaffolding that gives me goosebumps and makes me smile. It's a blend of a whole bunch of different feelings that on paper seems like they should clash with each other, but it just flows together so nicely. It is one of the best of the whole year, hands down. Wrist Meat Razor's Degeneration is a good one. I've been a big fan of that band for a while. Xerox Reflection has a feature from Kevin Lavaroni of Old Wounds fame, which is one of my favorite bands ever. This album feels slightly nostalgic despite being new, like 18 Visions with a little bit of nu metal edge to it. I dig it. And speaking of nostalgic despite being new, we got the debut self-titled EP from Girl of Glass, bringing back that MySpace deathcore sound. That's a good one. Cell Rot released 2 songs this year, and they're both really good, even though the album art makes it look like it would be an ambient album. It definitely does not sound like one. Knocked Loose's You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To is a really good album, but you don't need me to tell you that because everyone knows already. Same with Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation. That is at the top of everyone's list for a good reason. Parts of this song make me feel like I can levitate. 200 Stab Wounds also released a new album this year that's really good, even though YouTube will get mad at me if I show the album cover. But what I can show you is that if you play the music video for Hands of Eternity and you zoom and enhance on a certain beanie-clad individual in the first 7 seconds, you may notice that's the back of my head. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but regardless of me being in the music video or not, this album is definitely top 10 of the year, hands down. Alright, rapid fire round. Third Face got on my radar this year. They're really good. Punitive Damage, the Dark Prison Massacre's new EP. Heaven's 4-track EP, and I Got Heaven by the Mannequin Band that YouTube won't let me say the full name of. That one's really good, especially the live version. That one's insane. SHIT's For a Better World, Traumatizer's self-titled kicks ass. The You Hear Yes single is ridiculously good. Failure and Groin both killed it this year. The See You Next Tuesday Meth collab that also features the Red Chord is insane. Stabbing released 2 singles with the vocalist of Devourment and Peeling Flesh, and even though it is technically a re-recording, I'm still counting it. Cusshead's 2024 promo is gore grind with a really shrill approach to the vocals, which is nice for a change. Porcelain's self-titled is noise rock, punky, shoegaze. It's not for everyone, but it's good at what it does. Cult Leader released a song that's pretty good this year. No Right's 2024 promo is pretty good. Flesh Ripper's debut is also pretty good. Vow's Umbilical is great. The Brain Tourniquet Deliriant Nerve split is also great as well. And pretty much everything that came from Peace of Mind is also really good too. The Necessary Death split with Noisy Neighbors is awesome, and I'm also in the music video for that somewhere as well, which is cool. Jailed's Bestial Hardcore LP is self-described as auditory sandblasting, and I don't think I need to say anything more than that. Desperation Eclipse dropped Inner Ruin, and it's one of the doomiest things I've ever heard in my life. I've never particularly been a big fan of Oi-related punk, but What a Fucking Nightmare by The Chisel is very good and fun to listen to. Rabid's debut self-titled is some of the beefiest death to come out of 2024. Easily. Maze Envy by Siverus. I mean, this album would make the list just for Leviathan Tomb alone. That song rules. Orthodox dropped The Other Side of the Nail this year, and it is a good song, but it's mostly making this list because watching them play it live was one of the hardest moments of 2024 for me, and I'm so glad it was captured on camera. You know a set is good when it literally ends with the vocalist having to break up a fight. Fenty dropped a self-titled release, and it sounds like it's specifically made to be skateboarded to. It has this dinky-ass guitar tone that just invokes physical movement that's really infectious. I also mentioned them in last year's installment, and apparently a photo from that very show is their profile picture on Spotify, and I'm in it, which is just kind of funny. I don't know how I end up coincidentally being in a lot of these things. It just keeps happening. I don't know. Freddie Dredd released Cease and Disintegrate, and it is fucking awesome. The contrast of really dark and twisted subject matter and instrumentals occasionally being broken up with and accompanied by a very lighthearted, almost happy instrumental is just so cool. Plus we got Moribund Art doing the gnarly cover, and it's just so cool to see Freddie lean into the theatrics of extreme metal a little bit more. Not that that's a new thing, but it feels a little bit more pronounced now. Dude, also Frank Miller, that song is like specifically made to be played as loud as possible on blown out speakers in a 1997 Nissan Sentra. Freddie Dredd killed it this year. And speaking of as loud as possible on blown out speakers, Water Spirit's Warehouse Tapes is some hardcore techno that listening to it genuinely feels like... Also, the new Big Chef album is insane. It's silly, it's full of the most insane sounding bullshit I've ever heard, and I mean that in the best way humanly possible. It's like Car Bomb, but on bath salts, and also severely mentally ill. If you don't like this album, fuck you. I also got a shout out in the album description, which I do think means I'm a little bit biased to some degree, but I stand by what I said 5 seconds ago. Go and listen to it. Shout out Big Chef, thank you. Silo Medusa released a lot this year, and it's good. I think. That sounds mean, but I don't know how to word it. It's fun to listen to, but fun also isn't the right word. I don't know. I get a kick out of it, is my point. It's interesting. Also, very few people are aware of this project, so I'm talking about it. And I don't know, man. There's a lot of great stuff that came out this year, and if I were to talk about all of them in detail, we would be here all day. Also, a lot of these albums are really great, but I just don't really have that much to say. Not that that's stopped me for the entire video up until this point, but it would be a crime if I didn't include them, so just give it up for them. Yay! This was a great year for music fans with divorced parents, so make sure to check out all of these as well. But long list of things aside, Spit by MX Lonely is one of my absolute favorite EPs to come out this year. I don't know if it's my number one favorite, but it's at least super close. With each listen, I enjoy it more, and each song on the EP gets progressively better, in my opinion. Someone Who Isn't Me might be the worst performing track numbers-wise, but to me, I think it's the perfect crescendo to the EP before ending. And I'm so happy I got to watch them play it live in a laundromat with like 20 other people, and if you think that that's a joke, it's not. And allow me to complain for a second, because that was a pay-what-you-can show, and apparently they only got paid $14 for gas money, which is insane and pisses me off, especially because 10 of those dollars are from me. Like, I know it's a small show and payment isn't required, but like, fuck y'all, that's not cool. Anyways, I'm not the best at describing why a piece of music is so good, which you've probably gathered already, but I will say that whatever sauce was put into Nirvana's Nevermind to make it so good, that same sauce was used on this album. I love it. This Is All We Ever Get by Spaced is fast and it's fun. You know the sauce that I mentioned earlier? Whatever sauce made this Iron Reagan album so good is also used in this album. This album rules, and I really hope it gets the recognition it deserves, because I'm gonna go see them in May, and I am sick and goddamn tired of going to shows to have fun during the openers, and like 99% of the crowd is a stick in the mud. In fact, the ratio of sticks to mud makes that analogy not even work anymore. This album is meant for movement, for people climbing on top of each other, and for people yelling shit in unison. If it's just gonna be 3 people two-stepping while everyone acts bored and above it all, I'm gonna fucking scream. Iron Lung released a new track this year, and they also released a new promo tape limited to 100, only available at shows, nowhere online. And when I saw them live at Maryland Death Fest, I completely forgot to get one. That's right, there's an Iron Lung release that only 100 people got to listen to, and it was sitting on a table directly in front of me, and it just completely slipped my mind. So that sucks. Is it good? Probably. If you're one of the lucky few who've heard it, let me know, because my dumbass forgot somehow, and I'm still kicking myself about it. This year I really got into Vomer or Vommer. I'm Actually, not sure. It's a dual mincecore and dark wave post-punk goth shit project, so two very different sounds, both done really well. Although these separate but the same projects didn't really put out that much this year, I'm still including it on this list because I listened to it a bunch this year, and also because imagine my shock when I hear a new track with my voice sampled. That was weird. It was a moment where I was like, wait, am I having a stroke? What's happening? This project was already on this list, but that just gave it a few extra points, so hell yeah. But shifting gears a little bit, some of you are already going to be familiar with this, but bear with me. Y'all remember Anal and Throck, right? They've been pretty silent the past few years, but they were a really interesting blend of industrial, black metal, and grindcore. Well, one of the two members, Nick Kenny, who basically does everything except for the vocals, has been a little preoccupied making drift funk, which at first glance sounds a little funny, like that one guy who quit Paramore to start a rap project and then got bullied relentlessly for. Oh, I wonder why those are turned off. But it is not that at all, because Nick goes by the name Chord Hell and went viral on TikTok and is absolutely killing it to an insane degree. Much like how no one predicted that From First to Last would be a stepping stone to Skrillex's career, Anal Nathrak will seemingly be reduced to a footnote on another top 10 charting dance musician, and it hasn't happened a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. But anyways, the music is actually really good. You've probably heard some of it before and just didn't realize that there was any association with this band, but I don't know. I just think that's pretty cool. Anyways, now that we've shifted gears into electronic stuff, Synthony is a new project from Sewer Slut, and I'm a big fan. This song makes me feel like that one scene in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I'm not even exaggerating in the slightest. That's just an accurate description. Machine Girl Super Freak is so good, dude. Black Glass is one of my favorite songs to come out of this whole year. It's very high energy in a malleable way that like you could dance to it or mosh to it depending on your mood or the setting, which I know that that's just basically describing most of Machine Girl's discography, but still. Years ago, I got a YouTube comment recommending that I check out Enfract, and huge shout out to whoever that person was, because this year Enfract released what I believe is their first full-length album, and it's so good. I was in the live chat for when this album was debuting, and it was so exciting to hear some of these tracks for the first time along with everyone else. It's just some really fantastic electronic breakcore, techno, occasionally dipping its toes into some electronic hardcore where like the kick drum is just bashing your eardrums in repeatedly, constantly shifting between the softest thing you've ever heard and the hardest thing you've ever heard. It's really cool. Art is by Rabbit Kitten, who has a very cool vibe to their work, and it's surprising that they don't have more followers. Anyways, to me, it is one of the standout electronic albums of this year. And I know that this is my channel, and I can and will talk about whatever I want, but I will acknowledge that whenever I talk about electronic music, I think people just tend to humor me, and I don't really think people are that interested. So here's just a bunch of various electronic releases that came out this year that I thoroughly enjoyed. We don't have to get into all of them, they're just, I liked these. Earlier this year, I made a video on the visual aesthetics of dubstep, and the title card music I used for it is from Molly, who just randomly popped up on my For You page making sound design tutorials. And she has a new EP out, and it's very good. If you like aggressive, insane electronic stuff, do not sleep on this project. There's some fucking awesome sound design all over this. And even if you don't enjoy electronic music, but you do enjoy heavy stuff, projects like these are at the very least worth a listen. Give it a try. Shifting gears into the more ambient side of things, Tape Loops by One Heart is actually my most listened to album of the entire year. Not because I'm a super fan or anything like that, but just because it's great to listen to while you edit, and each song is only a minute long, so it's easy to put on a loop and zone out, then 3 hours go by, and then your Spotify Wrapped is broken beyond all comprehension. But it is a very solid ambient EP, and I'd highly recommend it. Willix by My Little Winter invokes a very specific feeling of there just being a wall of drony noise at a very small show, and that low frequency is kind of rattling the snare a little bit. The song is like that, but ambient and winter. That's a very weird description, but that is 100% accurate. You will either like it and find it calming, or you will find it slightly overwhelming. It kind of depends on your headspace, but either way, it's a good one. Oh yeah, we got a gigantic revamped Akira Yamaoka's Silent Hill 2 OST. So that's actually huge. Hoarfrost Sky, it's always very exciting to hear a project do something that feels genuinely new. These albums take you on a journey, which feels cheesy to say out loud, but it's accurate. Releasing an atmospheric black gaze album and also releasing that same album as an ambient drone rendition alternative release is just so cool, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone do something like that before. One of the weirder releases that came out this year is from More Sua, and it's a Mario 64 sound font cover of Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory. I know it's really silly to include this on this list, but due to the limited nature of the sound font, it really breaks the album down to its just essential core building blocks, and it almost makes it shine brighter and clearer in some ways. It's much more palatable, but in a way that doesn't actually compromise how good the original is. It sounds like desert level music, but wearing Jinko pants. It sounds like the OG Doom soundtrack, but with like way more kick to it. I shouted this project out on Twitter when it only had like 100 views, and since then it has blown up quite a bit, so it's not really being slept on that much anymore, but I still want us to talk about it. But speaking of albums that aren't technically new, there's plenty of stuff I got into this year that did not come out in 2024, but I felt like I should include it regardless. Parasite by Stomach and Oubliette by Burn Unit are great if you like anger. Heathercore by Heather Vomiting God is both great and horrible to listen to. This year I also got into World of Pleasure, but I don't think they released anything this year. One of the bands I was most excited to discover this year is Purge. Purge came from that little circle that really got me into extreme music, like the 2013 Code Orange Kids, Full of Hell, Heartless era. And getting into Purge sort of felt like I was time traveling back to that time, which was really nice. Listen to the first track off of their split with Jarhead Fertilizer and you'll be hooked pretty instantly. Fair warning though, since it's a band that hasn't been active in like 10 years, their band profile on Spotify is completely messed up. Either they've drastically changed genres like 4 times, or it's just not being maintained anymore, so just check out their Bandcamp instead. Infectious Jelking is one of the dumber projects to pop off this year, and that's not at all a bad thing. If I'm being honest, I'm a little uneasy with the W word, and I kind of thought Slam moved on from that a handful of years ago, but oh well, goes to show how much I know. It's not like Slam is particularly known for being politically correct, so it's not that much of a surprise, I guess. The tunes are good, but just a heads up, you know. Dust Bowl Champions Cardinal Sin came out in late 2023, and I am genuinely surprised it's not more popular. The music video for I Think I'm Losing My Mind, which is my favorite song off of the album, has such stunning art direction, and then I looked at the view count, and then I lost my goddamn mind because how is it so low? I know I've touched on plenty of smaller projects in this video, but this is the most high quality to low view ratio I've ever seen. Go check it out, it's great. Air Max by Plata came out in 2020, and it scratches an itch in my brain like no other album can. This year I also really got into Grouper, and I'm so glad I did because I think she's one of my favorite artists ever now. Her songs sound like a soundtrack to a coming-of-age story where nothing turns out okay in the end, but it's beautiful and worth it. It's ambient, it's psychedelic, it's folk, it's electronic, it's noisy, it's unpleasant, it's shoegaze sometimes. It's one thing to have a piece of art make you feel a certain way, it's another thing to have a piece of art make you feel a way that you can't exactly quantify. It feels very special, is my point. Seemingly all footage of her performing live feels like a ceremony more than it does a live show. The entire audience is silent, no phones, just giving her 100% of their attention. I would compare it to a church, but even that feels like cutting it short somehow. Grouper sounds like music made by and for biblically accurate angels. Headache sounds like the heavy feeling in your chest when you feel like a part of yourself is missing. Ethel Cain once even described listening to the song as feeling very close to God, not in the biblical sense, but like in the general feeling of life and mystery that oftentimes gets labeled as God. So if you don't take my word for it, trust Ethel Cain. And to add even more mystique to her work, there's only like 2 interviews of her seemingly ever. And one of the 2 interviews is entirely dedicated to her just talking shit about how much she hates Urban Outfitters. And that is just so goddamn funny.
Fake community-based fucking stores like Urban Outfitters is the worst.
Like, imagine that with literally any other living artist. Imagine if Bob Dylan, the only thing he ever said publicly was, man, Zoomies is overrated. It's like that, but for real. That's so funny. All right, I'll move on. Sorry. Spy and Mephitic Corpse both released some really great singles, even though the rest of the album won't be out until 2025. And speaking of 2025, it looks like we're going to be getting a new Psycho Frame release and a new Motionless in White too, I believe. Ghostmane said he was going to release an album this year, but then nothing happened, so maybe 2025. Katya was supposed to release Black Diarrhea this year, but alas, Still nothing, so maybe 2025. And on a personal note, this year was full of so many crazy moments and awesome albums, and meeting a bunch of y'all at Maryland Death Fest was so fucking cool. I really appreciate all the love and support this year because it's fucking crazy to me. Make sure to show some of that love to any and all of the projects that I listed today. But speaking about meeting a bunch of you and about what 2025 has to offer, I figured I might as well mention that I should be attending Sonic Temple as well this year if all things go to plan. There's a small chance that the place I'm gonna be staying won't work out, and then I either have to not go or crash on one of y'all's couches, so if anyone is interested in being a backup option, let me know. I probably shouldn't be using my platform to be a bum, but, you know, it's my channel, so mind your own business. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. I've been working really hard on a new video over the last 2 months, but I hit a wall where staring at it made me feel like I'm going insane, so I decided to make this video instead. Anyways, that video is going to be my next video, and I have a whole bunch of other fun stuff planned for 2025. I might even pass 100K, which is an insane number. Thank you all so much. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to editing that giant video, so I'll see you then, and take care. Bye. Love you.